Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bonsoir, bonjour, depending on where you are. I see the teacher's pet have arrived, so thank you for being here. Hi, Connie. Hi, Linda. It's amazing to have you here every single week. If you are listening right now and you are not one of the teacher's pets, please say hi anyway in the chat. I would love to hear from you and interact with you as we go through this weekly session together. Today, the topic is French grammar versus English grammar. As usual, there is a little worksheet that will serve as a takeaway for you that you can use when you leave the class today. The worksheet is available on my Telegram channel. Oh, we have Laurie here. Hi, Laurie. Sweet to have you back here. So the worksheet is, as usual, available on the Telegram channel if you don't have it already. If you are opening my emails, which I send every week we try to send several emails. I am aided by my friend Linda here, who helps me schedule all of that. But if you haven't received it in your email on Friday, you can always get it on my Telegram channel. Even long after the fact, you can get it on my Telegram channel. So I recommend joining that channel. It's free. The link is in the description below. And speaking of the Telegram channel, we have recently hit 150 subscribers on that channel. So thank you for being there and for joining the channel and grabbing the worksheets and just working alongside me to become French speakers together. Because of that, I have decided to create a little special offer. So everybody who is on the Telegram channel can have a code right now, which will give you $150 off of any of my courses, which are available on the French Fluency website. So there is a special code. You can use it starting now, and it is until Thursday, which is the 15th of July. So if you're listening to the replay right now and the 15th of July is not gone yet, you can still use that code, but you can only get it on the Telegram channel. So that is one more reason to join. If the worksheets and my sharings of daily French bath content was not enough, that's another reason to join the channel. You can get some special offers from time to time. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Also, I wanted to tell the French Fluency Accelerator students, by the way, the $150 coupon can be used also to join the French Fluency Accelerator. And this week in the French Fluency Accelerator, we are choosing the topic for our next workshop. So for the French Fluency Accelerator students, if you didn't know, I create new content every month, and we have either a French live class or a workshop. The workshops are typically about grammar or about particular ways of becoming a French speaker. So for example, the manifesting course that I shared last week was originally a part of the French Accelerator, and it was selected by the students. So if you're a student of the French Fluency Accelerator, now is the time to vote. You have received an email today with the link to a poll. So far, only grammatical topics have received votes. There have been 5 votes so far. So we'll see what the topic becomes. I'm always super excited to prepare those workshops for you because it's always a blast. I learn a lot about sometimes about the French language and the French grammar and how things work. And I just love creating new methods that makes it easier for you to learn French and to understand the grammar, the way the language works, the culture, etc., etc. And speaking of grammar, today we have the topic of today is French grammar versus English grammar. So I need to tell you that I will not be able to address all the differences between French grammar and English grammar today because it is huge. And I think we have already 5 or 6 workshops in the French Accelerator, all of which is between 90 minutes and 2 hours. And it's a huge amount of content. But today I want to give you a couple of quick rules and quick fixes, if you will, quick wins, stuff that will help you feel more secure and more confident when you are trying to speak French or write in French in regards to the grammar that is different in French and in English. And I will give you a couple of rule of thumb that you can use, which will allow you to be correct more often than not. That is really my goal for us today, is that I can give you some really quick guidelines and really quick fixes that will help you be correct more often than not. And if you are really serious about learning how to speak French, quote unquote, correctly and using the French grammar successfully and fluently, I can only recommend that you join the French Fluency Accelerator, because then we have like huge amount of content and a community where we can practice together about French grammar. And that is a lot more efficient than what we can do in 1 hour today. Like, as I always say, that the 1 hour on YouTube is more a way to connect together and to just find quick wins and find community and not feel so alone, I guess, on that French learning journey. But of course, if you're serious about learning French, it is better to just dive in and either join a program, or you could actually work one-on-one with me as a coach, particularly if you have specific goals that you need to achieve fast, whether for your work or for your personal life. If you need to become a French speaker rather rapidly, then that is where I come in as a one-on-one coach. If you are learning more for your own benefit and for your own pleasure, then the French Fluency Accelerator is a great place to learn things very in depth, but not necessarily very, very fast. Just learn it step by step in order, and do it alongside a community of students, and always have a way to reach out to me if you need help. So yes, I think that's it for the introduction for today. Let's jump right into the topic. I hope you have your worksheet with you. And the first thing that I wrote on this worksheet, which is really important to understand, is that French grammar and English grammar are about 80% similar. Now, it's a ballpark number, baseball metaphor. It's a estimation. I haven't actually gone out and counted all the grammar rules that are similar in French and in English. It's just more like my educated guess as a French learning coach who also speaks English quite well, as you can hear. The French grammar and English grammar are very, very similar. I would say about 80% are similar. So when you speak, when as an English speaker you try to speak French, most of the stuff you will say will actually be correct. Oh, Deborah is here. Sans sommeil à Brisbane. Well, I'm sorry that you're not sleeping, but then you get to be here with us. So that's amazing. Welcome. If you fall asleep, that will be cool, because everybody needs to sleep at 3 a.m., but it's sweet to have you here. It's really nice. What was I saying? Yes, 80%. So the thing is, when you try to speak French as an English speaker, you will naturally find 80% of the correct stuff. But the thing is, the remaining 20%, they really, really stand out, and they make it really difficult because, it sticks out like a sore thumb, as you say in English. I hope that's the way you use this metaphor, this expression. It's, if you have a sore thumb, if your thumb hurts, you're not actually paying attention to the fact that the rest, like this 99% of your body, is actually healthy and functioning well. If your thumb hurts, or any part of your body for that matter, like when a part of your body hurts, you focus on that part of the body, which is, it's normal. Like that's what the brain is designed to do. Like you are designed to solve problems, and therefore you are designed to draw your attention to the thing that's not working. And that is why the remaining 20% of French grammar is a freaking nightmare, like I shared on Instagram. It's, I have made 5 or 6, I don't know, there are 3 about verbs. Oh my God, no, it's at least 7 workshops in the French Fluency Accelerator are just me breaking down French grammar in ways that are applicable and actionable by French learners who speak English. So I'm well aware, and all of that I have made it with, like, to explain those 20% and just point out a little bit the 80% that are the same. But I'm well aware that it is a lot of work to even learn those 20%. So the goal for today is to have actionable rules that will allow you to make some of those 20% a little bit less hard and a little bit easier to speak French. And sometimes it's difficult to remember those rules, so it will take you a lot of practice. But if you practice what you're learning today, you will also speak French a lot better than if you don't practice it. Even though, like I said, those are only quick rule of thumbs. There are always plenty of exceptions, but you have to start somewhere. So the first, and I chose 3 rules that I think are the most useful that you can learn and that will bring you the fastest results. And like I said, then you can dive deeper into a program or something where I have explained really like a lot more details. But first rule for today, which I'm taking from the workshop in the French Fluency Accelerator, which is about adjectives. So French adjectives are typically before the noun. So if you don't understand any of the terms that I say, because I'm going to use a lot of grammatical terms. So if I say things that you don't know what that is, like, if I say adjectives and you don't know what that is, please ask. Like, go ahead and ask a question. Here, I'm going to assume that you know those words, because if I try to explain every single word, it will take me a long time. But if there are any words that you don't know, the chat is here for you. And by the way, if you're listening to the replay, I completely forgot to welcome the people listening to the replay. But if you're listening to the replay, welcome. you are absolutely at your place here. I understand that not everybody can show up live, so that's why the comment section is here for you. So you can ask any question in the comment section, give me any feedback. I absolutely love it when I get to return to those recordings and to see that people have reacted or asked questions in the replay, and I always answer, so don't hesitate. Even if you can't make it live, the comment section is here for you, and the goal is to be able to continue the conversation. So replay listeners are welcome, and of course, live people are even more welcome, perhaps. So if I say anything that is really weird, that you don't understand, in the French Accelerator, I always insist on defining every topic, because I'm like that, you know, academic formation, academic training. I have gone to university where you have to define everything you say. But here, I'm sticking to the terms that are broadly used. If you don't know them, please ask. I'm going to explain them. So French adjectives are typically before the noun. By the way, please tell me if you already knew that. Did you already know that the French put the adjectives? No, sorry, typically after the noun. I got confused. So in English, the adjectives are typically before the noun. You say a red car. In French, the adjectives are after the noun. We say une voiture rouge. So please tell me if that was new for you, or if that was something that you knew. I would assume that most French learners know that. But it is an important thing to keep in mind, because even when you know it, you might fail to practice it. You might just, try to speak the same way you speak in English. It happens to my students all the time. Not all the time, but frequently it happens to my students that they would just sneak their adjectives while they would put it in English, where actually it goes after the noun. There are, however, exceptions to these rules, because otherwise it would not be fun. Like in French, you always want to have exceptions and exceptions of the exceptions, because it's what makes French grammar fun, right? Connie is saying, I knew it, and it is confusing. It is very confusing to have most adjectives after the noun, and it gets even more confusing when you have the exceptions, the list of exceptions that are actually before the noun. And so there are roughly 22 exceptions which are before the noun, and those exceptions are short and frequent. Like, those are really the important things. Now, of course, if you're learning French at the beginning, it's difficult to know that an adjective is frequent. At least you can see that it is short. But those are short and frequent. That also means that those are the ones that you are most likely to meet at the beginning of your study. Because an adjective, for example, like petit, which means small, petit is the most widespread adjectives in the French language. When you look at the frequency list, the first adjective that shows up is petit. And that is one of those which is short, right? 2 syllables and frequent. So that is one of those that goes before the noun, not after. Linda is saying, I remember when you were learning it was pissing you off. Can you say it still pisses me off? It's a practice. Like, okay, like the French have thought it would make more sense to put the adjectives after the noun. The English have thought it would make more sense to put the adjectives before the noun. Like, there is no particular reason to do it one way or another. It's just sort of a convention. It's an agreement that speakers of a particular language have. I think there are pretty much as many languages who do it one way or the other way. So, for example, I also speak German because I live in Austria. In German, it's mostly before the noun, like in English. I also speak Spanish because I learned it at school. In Spanish, it's mostly after the noun, like in French. Also, it's logical because those are Latin languages, while German and English are more Germanic languages, at least in the way they deal with grammar. So that is part of the reason why you have those differences. One thing that I actually learned from one of my students, so thank you, Melanie, if you're ever listening to that, is that in French, those adjectives that are before the noun, in meaning, they spell the anagram bags. Bags, B-A-G-H-I-G. G. What's this letter? I get always confused. I think it's G, right? Yeah, G. So B, A, G, and S. In French, we say G, so of course it's confusing, but G. So bags, and it stands for beauty, age, goodness, and size. G, yes. Okay, thank you, Linda. So beauty, age, goodness, and size. Now, if you're in the French Fluency Accelerator, you have heard me say before that I hate semantic explanation. So semantic means per the meaning. Typically, you can't really explain grammar or linguistics with meaning-based explanations. So something like the bags anagram, I don't love it because it's meaning-based, and there are many ways that you can you can find, if you look too much in the corner, like here it doesn't really work, and here it doesn't really work. But still, if you include the fact that they are short and frequent, and then you remember this meaning-based explanation, beauty, age, goodness, and size, then you're pretty close to knowing which adjectives go before the noun. The only other way to do it, which is more precise, will be to learn them one by one if they go before or after the noun. And by the way, in our adjectives workshop, like for those of you who are in the French Accelerator, if you watch the adjectives workshop, I also share that there are adjectives that go before or after the noun, and that they might have a different meaning if they are before or after the noun. So it can get pretty complex. But if you stick to what I've shared today, you will be right much more often than not. And that is the goal. Like, the goal is to minimize the amount of mistakes that you will make when you speak French so that you increase the chances of being understood. That's all that this is about. Because speaking with no mistakes whatsoever is a bit of a wild goose chase, for one thing. Like, not even natives speak without mistakes. I'm pretty sure that when I speak French, I make mistakes myself. Not many, obviously, clearly not many. When I write, I seek to really proofread and make sure that I'm not making mistakes, because otherwise I would feel bad about myself. But most natives will make mistakes in their native language, and that's okay. Like, that's part of speaking a language. But the goal would be to make as few mistakes as possible so that you increase the chances of being understood. We have Cynthia here. Hi, Cynthia. Nice to see you. Yeah, so adjectives that are before the noun are short and frequent, and they often fall in those 4 categories: beauty, age, goodness, and size. So petit, for example, that's size. Another one, which is beau, means beautiful, that's beauty. Age, you have jeune or vieux. Those are also before the noun. And goodness, un bon, un mauvais, un gentil, un méchant, those will be after the noun. But the other adjectives, the vast majority of adjectives, will be after the noun in French. So that was the first rule. Confusing and difficult for English speakers to wrap their head around, but it's mostly a practice. So once you have it, you have it. Again, I strongly recommend doing your daily French bath, listening to some French every day, because of course, the more you hear people speaking this way, the easier it will be for you to also speak this way, because it becomes normalized. And if your brain learns that everybody does it this way, you will also do it this way. So that's one of the reasons why the daily French bath is super duper important. Tony saying mnemonic: bags, beauty, age, goodness, and size, note to self. Yes, exactly. So thank you for typing it in the chat. That is what it is about. It's also on the worksheet here: beauty, age, goodness, and size. It's a mnemonics. It's not perfect, but it helps. Really helps. Number 2, one of my favorite battlefields. I repeated it again today in a session with a student, because, to be honest, I think it comes in every session with a student, unless my student is extremely advanced. I had 2 sessions today, and one of my students did not need me to repeat this because she is very advanced. The other one is an upper intermediate student, and it comes up every time. Like, if you're my student and in a one-on-one session you keep hearing there are no aspects in French, it's normal, happens to all of my students. Honestly, the day that I stopped saying that there are no aspects in French in your sessions, you can feel that you have arrived. But first, we need to look at what's an aspect. So perhaps if you have been in a English grammar class, you have heard that there is such a thing in English as tense and aspect. Tell me, please, in the chat if you have ever heard this expression, tense and aspect. That's an English grammar thing. Tense and aspect, anyone? As usual, I don't know how much of a lag there is, so I don't know if people are completely clueless or if they are just typing and I'm being late. You can also tell me, by the way, if you like my new background. I've just kind of reorganized the stuff in my flat, and now the shelf that was next to me is now beside me. Cynthia is saying only tense. Okay, so aspect is not. Linda is saying tense I knew, but I didn't know it was called aspect until I started learning French. Wow, how interesting. Because if you look up, for example, articles on Wikipedia about English grammars, so Laurie is saying yes, they have. Okay, cool. If you look at, and by the way, Laurie, your name is actually Errol, right? Because we spoke per email. So yeah, if you look at Wikipedia articles about English grammar, you will see the expressions of tense and aspects. In French, we have more like tense and moods. But tense and aspect is a rather frequent way. And so basically a tense is how the verb evolves over time. So past, present, future, those are tenses. And an aspect is how the verb evolves compared to the passing of time. So, for example, if something is progressive, that's an aspect. Okay, or if something is perfect in English, that's an aspect. So, for example, you have the present progressing. I could say right now I am teaching French grammar on YouTube, and am teaching, that is present progressive. It is ongoing now. I could say I teach French grammar on YouTube, but that would be more like, oh yeah, it's something I do, like it's my profession or something like that, something I do regularly in my life, versus I am teaching is happening right now. If I say I have taught, for example, I have taught French to my students today, it's perfect, which means it's over, but there is still some sort of consequence onto the present. That's at least how I have learned English grammar at school. So in English, you have basically three different aspects. You have the like regular, like I teach on YouTube, the progressive, I am teaching on YouTube, and the perfect, which I have taught on YouTube. And this will apply to different tenses. Like you can also have the past progressive. Oh, yeah, the other day I was teaching on YouTube and then this and this happened. Or after I had finished teaching, after I had taught my students, this and this happens. So you can move them around like that. And this is conjugation, basically. Conjugation is so tricky in every language, but in French it's even more tricky. And the French Accelerator, we already have 3 workshops about conjugations. And depending on the votes we're getting, we might get a third one, a fourth one soon in August. So if you don't want another conjugation workshop and you're in the French Accelerator, go vote and pick something else. I'm really curious to see what will happen out of that vote. Like I'm really excited every time there's a poll. I'm like, okay, what's my next punishment? Because every time I look at things and I'm like, oh, that's easy, and then I spend 2 weeks on it, and it's actually pretty hard. So, but I like that for some reason. I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing anything. Anyway, that was a digression. But so in English, you have aspects. You have such a thing as a continuous present. I am teaching. But in French, there are no aspects. So this is one of the most confusing things for English speakers who are learning French, because like if you don't have an aspect, what are you going to do? And the thing is, if I say j'enseigne la grammaire sur YouTube, that can be what I'm doing right now, or that can be what I do in general. And we don't need to make a difference. I know it's very confusing when you have grown up with having this difference in your language. The fact that the French don't need it and don't use it and don't have any equivalent, it's weird, it's confusing, but that's just how it is. So that's why with every single one-on-one session with my clients, I end up telling them, no, like don't go putting the verb to be in the middle of that, because there is no aspect in French. You just have to take the main verb and conjugate it. So if you say je chante, that's I sing or I am singing, and it doesn't matter. The difference does not matter to the French. It's just something that you have in English. It was very difficult for me also when I was learning English to learn the differences between, like, I teach and I am teaching, because for me, like as a French person, like it's, how is that not the same? But in English it isn't. So yeah, please tell me if that makes sense, or if you have any question about it, please ask. Also, because the third point that we have on today's content plan is kind of building up on that. So that's a little bit important to really understand this one. All right, let's see. Tony saying mnemonic always helps if you spell it properly. Yep. Lynn is saying, yes, I didn't know about it before when I first started learning French, because I would translate, I would write stuff like je suis mange une pomme. Yes, that is what happens when you don't realize that you don't have aspects in French. And it happens pretty much every session. Like someone would say there are no aspects in French, so I learned what an aspect was. Yeah, that is why I have made those workshops where with the verbs, where I insist every time that there are no aspects. In every single sessions, I insist that there are no aspects, because if you have grown with them and you're used to them, you want to put them in. Versus a person like me who has grown without aspects really has a really hard time to understand that in English you have aspects. And that is actually something that I think you really learn it really with immersion, because if you immerse yourself in a language, you will realize that people, well, if it's French, people don't use aspects and you just, drop them. Also, it helps when you start thinking in French, really. Because if you keep thinking in English and translating into French, you'll always have this sort of friction. Like for me, I would not be able to successfully and accurately introduce the aspects every time they need to be there. And I actually don't know if I get it right every time. Like you tell me, like I probably make mistakes sometimes on these kind of things still. But because I think only in English, and right now I don't have I don't have a little guy in my head. It's like, oh, wait, we're translating that from French. No, I think everything in English, and then I tell it to you in English. It's a lot easier for me to apply the grammatical rules. So, yep, I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, please ask. Yes. And then we can move on to the third part of the third rule for today. Oh yeah, also something really important. I think today I've somehow focused on the things that the French have less of than the English. But French has less auxiliary verb than in English. Now that is really important because in English you have auxiliary verbs all the time. That was so difficult for me to learn, that you had all these auxiliary verbs for everything. Like in French we have two. We have avoir and être. And sometimes aller is masquerading as an auxiliary verb for the future, but it's not really an auxiliary verb. It just kind of looks like it, but it's not. It's just more like a way of phrasing things. But the two real auxiliary verbs that we have are avoir and être. If you don't know what an auxiliary verb is, it's basically an helping verb. Like auxiliary is a complex word for helping. It's a verb that helps another verb conjugate. So in French, you have such a thing as compound tenses. For example, the passé composé, that would translate as compound past. And a compound tenses work with two, like it's called compound, right? It has two forms. One is the main verb and the other one is an auxiliary verb. And that is always avoir or être, no matter what tense you're doing, what tense you're using. And a particular verb will always have either avoir or être. There are very rare cases where some verb that look the same can have either or. I'm not going to get into that today because it's really complicated. I think I've covered it in the workshop about speaking in the past in the French Accelerator. So I'm not going to get into that today. But basically in French, you only have those two, avoir and être. Versus in English, I don't even know how many auxiliary verbs there are in English. Do is an extremely frequent one. So you have, of course, you have be. We just spoke about it, right? I am teaching. Be is an auxiliary verb because I'm teaching is a compound tense. It's progressive and compound. Like compound means there are two parts of the verb. So am and teaching, that's two parts. That's a compound tense. So am, be is the auxiliary verb. Then you have, like I have taught, also a compound tense with two sides of the verb. So be, have, do. If you say I don't teach, that's the do auxiliary verb. And in English, all those auxiliary verbs, they can also work with any other verb. It's really confusing for French learners who's learning English. So be, have, do, and then you have all the modal verbs. Could, would, should, might, shall. I'm sure there are more that I haven't thought of. But yeah, you get the idea. You have a plethora of auxiliary verbs in English. In French, you only have être and avoir. Those are the two that we use as auxiliary verbs. But the thing is, we need something instead, right? We like the auxiliary verbs that you have in English. Oh, will is an important one. Will for the future. The auxiliary verbs that you have in English and the modal verbs you have in English, the French actually need something to replace them. So we have two ways, or yeah, let's say two ways. We have two things that the French do which replace the auxiliary verbs, that all the auxiliary verbs you have in English. One, we have a lot more conjugations. So for example, in English, you say, I will come, and come is just the same as a the regular, like I come, je viens, okay? I will come, the word is the same. Well, I will come is in French, je viendrai. So what we do is that we add more conjugations. So a verb has a lot more forms, if you will, in French than in English, which is why we have the beloved Becherel, which in English you could never have a book like that because you could not fill in English an entire page with the forms of just one verb. Terrible example here. Let's take this one. Like this is the verb aimer, right? To love or to like. And all of these are the different conjugation forms of the verb aimer. This is because in French, we don't use that many auxiliary verbs. Instead, we conjugate a lot. So we have more tenses, or like, I guess you could say that I will come is the future in English, so that's one tense. But in French, you have 6 forms instead of will and come, which is just, they don't change in English. And another thing that we have, which makes it even more annoying for modelization, we don't have modal verbs, but we have moods. And moods are things like the subjunctive, which the French Accelerator students are very familiar with, because last time we had the workshop, it was about the subjunctive. And I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it. Unless you're still, I mean, if you feel that you're not advanced enough yet to enjoy that workshop, then don't watch it because it's pretty advanced. So you would want to watch the other ones first. But subjunctive is an additional mood. It does actually exist in English, but in English, most of the time, you don't actually notice it because it's not very obvious. In French, it's very obvious and it's very much in your face. And yeah, that's how we replace not having modal verbs. We also have things like conditionnel. Conditional is a tense that indicates that we will something would happen. So it corresponds to would in English. So for example, j'aimerais is I would like. You can actually use it in French for a polite request. So if I would like a coffee, you can say j'aimerais un café. I'm just want to write that here. So basically, as you can see, we use a lot more conjugation in French to replace the fact that we don't have that many auxiliary verbs, which in English, you will use modalization with auxiliary verbs, and in French, we will do modalization with conjugation. So I hope that makes sense. That I'm aware that this little last point was a bit more confused because it's really complicated to sum it up. Like I said, I've created several workshops to explain it in details. I can't really sum it up here in 10 minutes, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We do have 30 minutes left. I have a couple of things that I shall tell you about how to survive French grammar. So I will tell you that. And as usual, we will have some time to answer any questions that you have about French or about anything that you think I can answer. So how to survive? The thing is with verbs, because in English you have so many auxiliary verbs, you will be tempted to translate each of the parts of the verbs one by one. So I would do this. You would first think of translating would, and then think of translating do. And if you do that, you will get stuck. Every single week, I think almost every single day that I work with clients, I have clients who get stuck because they're like, okay, how do you say will? How do you say do? How do you say have? And that's not what matters. What matters is which word of the two words, which words has the main meaning. And in English, it's always the second one. In English, you have this pattern of language where in a group of words, the last word is the one that has the most important meaning. In French, it's often the first one, but different story. In English, the last word of a group is often the one with the main meaning. So I will sing, it's about singing, it's not about willing, right? I would like, it's about liking, it's not about woulding. Or I should do this, it's about doing, not about shoulding. So that is really important. Like ask yourself which verb has the main meaning, and then you grab this one, you translate it into French, and then after you have the translation of that one verb, you think, okay, what actual conjugation do I want? Because in French, we just don't think in terms of first putting a modalizator and then putting the verb. We first put the verb and then we conjugate the verb to represent the modalization that we want. So that's really it's like a little brain gymnastics. If you're still translating from English into French, you want to have this gymnastics each time you have a verb that's in two parts in English. Otherwise, you will get stuck. So I hope that one makes sense. The second thing that I want to tell you, which is really important, is to trust the SAIS process, which I've told you about every time. And I realize I don't have my prompt here, but fortunately, I learned from my mistakes and I put all my prompts in one little envelope that I can grab really easily. So at least I know where they are. So the SAIS process, selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. I have spoken about it many times. It is the basis of my course, Manifesting French Fluency. And that's actually how I found it. I found it while I was making that course or that workshop. It's for the French Accelerator students. It's a workshop. And if you have bought it outside of the French Accelerator, it's a course for you. But anyway, this is how I found this process: selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. This is, by the way, one of the free gifts that you get when you sign up for the French Fluency Starter Kit. So you have the link to that in the description below. If you have not already signed up for my emails, you can sign up and you will get you will get those free gifts, including this one. It's called the Ultimate Guide to Learning French with Apps. And really, it's not just about apps, it's about any resource and how the process of learning French works. It's really important that you trust this process and that you seek to follow this process as well as correctly, as closely as possible, right? So S stands for selection. You want to only learn what is relevant to you. Then you want to activate them one little bit at a time. So you never want to be activating more than what your brain can take. This is also part of the reason why I try to keep the content that I have for these 1 hour weekly class quite reduced, because I know that you can't take too much at a time anyway. If you're in the French Fluency Accelerator, I have not actually tried to reduce the amount of content in the workshop. It's the opposite that I have done in that program. I have tried to like really make the workshop as comprehensive as possible so that you can grasp the entirety of the topic. But I strongly recommend you don't try to swallow the workshop all at once. It's not a good idea to watch an entire workshop and just be like, what have I learned? It's better to watch a chunk of a workshop at a time. Of course, if you're live with me on the workshop, you will want to stay live and keep and ask questions to make sure that everything makes sense to you. But I would still recommend watching the workshop little bit by little bit afterwards again. And of course, now the workshops are recording. They're all recorded. They're all in the member zone. So you can watch them a little bit at a time and just, take one bite, digest it, come back, take another bite, digest it, because it's how it works, right? So selection, once you know that what you want to learn, the kind of task that you want to perform, then activation a little bit at a time. And then this one, super critical. I tell you every time about the daily French bath. The I stands for immersion. Immersion is really when your brain is actually learning. So the learning happens not when you are in class or trying to write. The learning, I guess when you're trying to do your homework, of learning happens as well. But it's not so much when you are in class or doing the selection or activation that the learning happens. The learning happens in the immersion phase. So that is why you want to be doing your daily French bath every day, because that is what normalizes the things for your brain. So activation tells your brain, okay, we are learning this now. And then when you're in the immersion, you really learn the things, because your brain is going to notice all the pieces and like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess the French people speak like that, so I'm going to speak like that as well. And then, of course, you have the safe practice element, an element that's often missing for many people. You want to be practicing in a situation where you know that you are not going to be mocked, or you are going to be, you are going to be supported as you practice French. So this is really important, to trust this process. And when you acquire new skills through activation and immersion, then you want to go practice them so that you solidify the learning. It's really important, because that's really the only way that all the complex French grammar will come through for you. You cannot learn that consciously. Like, if there's one thing that you should learn from my teaching, is that learning a language is not a conscious process. It is just not. When you were a child, you have learned your native language. It was not a conscious process. It's just something that sort of happened. And this is how it happens. So it will feel like it sort of happens. Like, even if you know that this is the process, it will feel like it sort of happens when it happens for you. It's kind of magical. It's a really cool experience when you find yourself able to say things that you weren't able to say before. Like, it's really enjoyable. So I hope you notice that next time it happens, and I hope it happens more and more for you, just because it never stops being magical. Like, each time I have a new client and we work together for a couple of hours, and then after like the second or third hour, the client says something which I have never told to them, and like just comes through, and they're like, wow, I don't know where it was coming from. That's because the activation and immersion has done its work, and it's just magical. So yeah, trust the SAS process. It's really important. Okay, we have some comments. Tony is saying, nice revision and recap for me. Happy to help. That's why I'm here. Lena is saying, the workshops are cut into manageable pieces, which is nice. You don't have to watch it all at once. Yes, that is why we have cut them. I make my assistant work on cutting the workshop every time that we have a new workshop, so that it gets easier. Once you have the recording, you can watch just a chunk at a time, and so you can do it step by step. And Cynthia is saying, immersion makes French a lifestyle for me. It's 100% what it is. It's about becoming a French speaker, right? That's what, it's the tagline on this channel. And also what it says on my website, frenchfluency.net, become a French speaker. It's what it is. You can't really learn French like you would learn mathematics. You have to embody it. And the third thing that I had to survive is to aim to think in French, because once you think in French, almost all of the grammar hassle becomes irrelevant. Of course, it takes a lot of, especially immersion, to get to a point where you think in French. I do have some guided meditation tracks on this very channel that you can use to think in French. Also within the French Fluency Accelerator, there are a couple more meditation tracks that you can use to help improve the processes of thinking in French and learning French more easily with your brain. So I strongly recommend you use those tracks. Yeah, how to think in a foreign language is a bit of a mystery still. I don't really know why no one has cracked this yet. No one really can tell you. If you look up how to think in a foreign language, you look up articles and so on, people can give you tricks on how to get there, but they cannot tell you exactly how it happens or like have a step-by-step reliable process. This is one of my holy grails. I am really, really not just interested, but committed to finding a way to make that a repeatable process. I cannot tell you when I will have it nailed down, but I'm quite confident that we have never been so close, and that the work that I have been doing with energy clearing and with meditation has really, really helped my students. So it's something I know we need to integrate. I'm still looking how to make it happen really specifically, but getting closer. So yeah, those are the 3 things to survive. Also, I said on the worksheets, I will say it again, join the French Fluency Accelerator if you feel so called, if you feel ready, if you feel like you have the space to be part of a program like that. The community is super amazing. And yeah, like you have really, really in-depth training, and there will be new workshops, new content every month. So the next live class for the French Accelerator, I think will be on the 31st of July. I don't remember what I said. Linda, do you remember what I said about the 31st of about the next live class? I think the next live class is going to be on the 31st of July. We are going to watch a short movie called Un monde sans rap. So it's like a world without rap music. It's not really about rap music. It's actually about the absence of it. It's a short movie that was released this year, and I really loved it when I watched it. And was like, wow, this is an amazing story and an amazing material to make a live class. It's actually the first time that I'm sharing that we are going to do this. I want to prepare it this week. And so as soon as it's ready, I'm going to send it to the students so you can do the exercises. So now is actually a great time to join the French Accelerator so you can be part of that live class. And also this week, like I said, we are voting for the next topic because the next workshop is on August 11th. That will be a Wednesday. And so, of course, I need time to prepare this workshop after the topic has been chosen. So yeah, like I said, in-depth training, all the workshops are really, really in-depth. Like I am absolutely committed to making everything make sense, which is not a small feat when you look at French grammar and you're like, this doesn't make any sense, or like it makes some sense. But so I'm really committed to breaking it down and getting to a point where for the mind of an English speaker, it does look like it makes sense. Because of course, when it's your native language, it feels natural to you, but it's not the same as making it make sense for a foreigner. So that's really what I'm committed to doing in those workshops. And then the live classes are a bit more, I would say, relaxed, but they're mostly relaxed for me because it's your job to speak in those classes. But it's an opportunity to practice French and to discover some French songs, some French videos, French movie. Like we are going to have a short film for the first time this month. And yeah, and of course, the supportive community of French learners, which are freaking amazing. Honestly, I mean, we have Linda and Cynthia here. They are both members of the French Fluency Accelerator. So as you can see, they're really cool. And we have also other students. Not every student can make it to those live classes because they have a life. But yeah, like it's actually a better use of your time to be in the French Fluency Accelerator than to watch those live classes, just because it's more intense and it's more value packed in the program. Obviously, like I said here, it's more a place to connect and look at more of some elements of French and try to find rule of thumbs way to make it easier for you, like quick wins, if you will. By the way, if you want to join the French Accelerator this week, you want to check the Telegram channel because there is a code that will give you $150 off your yearly subscription. So now is a particularly good time to join the French Accelerator. Right, so Linda is saying I'm going to be the première guinea pig for that. My French dirt road is still rough going. There is something about this, like Linda is always comparing how she has a highway for English and a dirt road for French in her brain. I'm thinking I might actually make that into a like a guided visualization or meditation, because there's something about this. I want to work more with that. And yes, so July 31st, the next live class, and August 11, the workshop. All right, that's the plan for the French Accelerator. Okay, so we have 15 minutes left. I have covered everything I had on the plan for today. So if you have any question about really anything in French, please type it in now. I am happy to answer any questions, assuming that I can answer it. But most of the time, when I'm asked something related to remotely French or the French culture, I can answer that. So go ahead, please ask me anything. And yeah, I'm happy, looking forward to answering you. Firsty, because I speak so much. All right. Let's see what is going on. I know we still have 8 people listening, so I'm hoping some of you will know what to ask. Oh, wow, great question from Tony. Is the French conditional a mood or a tense? That's an amazing question. It's one of my favorite grammar questions. So when I learned French as a native, because French natives have a lot of grammar classes. Like I learned so much grammar in school, so much conjugation, so many verbs. We spend a lot of time learning that when we are kids. Back when I was a kid, a while ago, I mean, I'm 36 years old, so 25, 30 years ago, we considered the conditionnel to be a tense. To be a mood. It was a mood. We had conditionnel présent, conditionnel passé première forme, and conditionnel passé deuxième forme. We even had 3 conditionnel. Now, the second form we almost never used, so there was conditionnel présent and conditionnel passé. For us, it was a mood. It was not unlike subjunctive. Subjunctive also have subjunctive présent and subjunctive passé, plus another 2 that no one uses. And that's how I learned it. But then I went to university and I had linguistic classes, which were more about descriptive linguistics. And for the first time of my life, a teacher told me and my fellow students that the conditionnel objectively was not a mood, that it was a tense of the indicative. So it was part of the indicative mood, and it was a tense. And now, actually, I realized rather recently that in this relatively new edition of the Becherel, if you look for the conditionnel, like here you have the indicative mood, right? And all its tenses. And when I was a kid, I learned there were 8 tenses of the indicative, which you can all see here, you know, présent, passé composé, imparfait, plus que parfait, passé simple, passé antérieur, futur simple, futur antérieur, right? So those are the 8 traditional ones that I learned. And then the conditionnel was a different mood. But now, as you can see here, there is conditionnel présent and conditionnel passé within the larger indicative. Now, it is interesting because that makes us question the way that we think about grammar. We think about a mood as a particular, having a particular meaning. So indicative is the goal to indicate, like it says that things are like they are. And the subjunctive would be the mood for subjectivity, for perception, for the things that you want. And the conditionnel, of course, is not what currently is. It's what currently would be with a particular situation. But grammatically speaking, given the shape of the verb form itself, it looks like it pertains to the indicative. That is part of the reason why I don't think that semantics or like the meaning of what something like stands for, or like, you know, the relations between the world and the word are not a good way of addressing grammar. Because if now we consider that conditionnel is a tense of the indicative, then the whole meaning argument is out. So, yep, it seems that people have agreed now that conditional is a tense, not a mood. So I guess that, I hope that answers your question. It does look more formally like a tense of the indicative. Errol is saying, I sent you an email with a French timeline PDF. Can you tell me later what you think of it? Well, I could try opening it now if I don't have a question. Tony is saying, thank you. Very clear explanation prompted by a comment by a school teacher on the Lumini lockdown look classes, school classes. I haven't heard of that, but yeah, I don't know what the teacher was commented on. Yeah, I hope that that helps. Okay, so let's see. I have a message from you, Errol. I use this to help. So if you have any questions, anyone listening right now, please type them in. I know Cynthia is saying she has no questions, but yeah. Can you hold up that book again so I can see the cover to order the correct version? Yeah, okay. So about this, what you want, what's important is that it says la conjugaison pour tous. This is the important thing because there are lots of Becherel that are about grammar, but you don't actually need the grammar one. You want la conjugaison pour tous. You might not have the exact same printing because I think they reprint it every year, and they also change the page numbers every year because the problem is that every single French household already has one of those, and they want to keep selling it, so they have to, you know, be creative about it. But if you understand how it works, it's okay if you don't have the exact same one, but you want la conjugaison pour tous. This is the important element. All right, let's see. So you have a, oh yes, there is a PDF here. I'm opening this. Plus que parfait avant déjà. I'm trying to understand what I'm looking at. So it's this thing, a document like this, which Errol has sent me. I'm trying to understand what I'm looking at. So you have the present, which is in red. Maintenant, en ce moment, I am, I have, je work, I work, je travaille. Passé récent, I have just worked. I worked, je travaillais. That would be, wait, that would be imparfait. Oh, okay. I see. Action précise. It doesn't look bad to me. Can you tell me where you have, Errol, can you tell me where you have this document from? Because it is not watermarked and it looks pretty good, to be honest, as far as I can tell. I am going to, je vais travailler. This is actually something that I probably would want to use with my students because it's, I mean, okay, last time I had a document that I looked at first sight and I was like, oh, I like this, that's good. It was about the subjunctive. And then I ended up gutting it completely when I made my own workshop. But still, I mean, this looks like a good document to me. Will have been, futur antérieur, j'aurais travaillé. Yeah, absolutely. Demain, l'année prochaine, futur simple. I will work, je travaillerai, yup. Then you have Dr. and Mrs. Van der Tramp for the verbs that go with et, which is a good mnemonic. Yeah, and then you have and imperative and yeah. So the little corner here about subjunctive is very not very actionable. But I have like in the French Accelerator, we have a complete well, first a complete workshop about it and a full worksheet, which I don't have here because those are only the free ones. But I've made a worksheet for the French Accelerator students with the subjunctive because I have not been able to find a document that is good for the subjunctive, so I made it for my students. But yeah, honestly, like this is the best document I've ever seen. So if you can somehow share it, like Errol, if you can somehow share it with the rest of the students, like by pasting the link in the chat or somewhere. Yeah, he said, I understand it. I use it to understand the timeline and it helps with the conjugation. It's honestly, it's good. Like if you can share it with our other friends here, that's yeah, it's a good document. Like I'm normally very critical of the documents that I get because most of them are quite sloppy. But honestly, this one is good. I could nitpick forever and try to criticize things, little things. But honestly, it's pretty good. Like I think it's as good as you can do trying to put all the tenses in one page. It's as good as it gets, I think. All right, we got another 6 minutes to go. So any questions are welcome. Tony is saying Lumini are the organizers of classes for education on French TV, such as during the COVID crisis. Oh, I will have to look that. I will have to look that up. It's a file I have on my computer. You can share it with your audience. Do you know where it was from originally? Because I mean, someone has done this work, and I would really appreciate to credit them because it's good work. Like it's really good. So yeah, I'll save it and I'll see how I can share it. But I would love to have credits on it if possible. It's given to me by another French teacher. Okay. But did that other French teacher make it themselves, or did they have it from someone else? No, if you find the name of the contact of the person who sent it to you, yeah, please send it to me. Then I reach out to them and ask where they have it from or if they made it, because it's quite good. All right. Any other question? Else, I will remind you that yeah, join the Telegram channel if you haven't already, especially this week when we have a particular coupon code which will give you $150 off any of the classes that I have made. All right, you'll look into it. Okay, thank you, Errol. I look forward to receiving that. Yep. No other question? Perhaps I should provide one word per live YouTube. You mean one vocabulary word? That would be fun, actually. I don't really like the word of the days kind of thing because it's a bit random, but I could create a word that, you could try to use in the comments. Yeah. Errol is saying, thanks for your knowledge. Look forward meeting with you all next week. So long. Yep. I also look forward to seeing you next week, definitely. One French word. What would be a good French word? Do I have French words here? Here's a French word that I like. Guérir, that means to heal. It's a verb from the second group. So it's nous guérissons, right? Like finir, nous finissons, guérir, nous guérissons. It means to heal. I find it that it's not very often used because you only use this word when you have an ailment and then the ailment is completely gone. So you don't use it for treating a patient or caring for a patient. It really is to heal. Like when something is completely healed, you can say c'est guéri. Like, for example, yesterday I was sick because I had just had my COVID vaccine and now I am not sick anymore. Je suis guéri, right? So that's a way to use this word. So, yep. Yeah, I'll think of introducing French words, but yeah, that could be the French word for today. Cynthia is saying, interesting word. Thank you. Yeah, and well, yeah, thank you everyone for coming. If you have a quick question, you have 2 minutes to ask it. And other than that, I'm going to sign off soon. I don't know, I have this thing lying around because I kind of wanted to show it to you. I think it's cute. It's an internationaler Impfpass. So it's delivered by the Austrian government, and that is where they put a stamp on for each vaccination that you get, which is probably the reason why they have so many pages. But I only have one stamp. I just got it this week. I only have this one stamp here for my first dose. I guess the second dose just has to go here. I like that they have thought of including 3 languages on the cover. So, Certificat International de Vaccination et de Prophylaxie. I feel seen and heard when people include my language on the cover. And of course, there's an English title, International Certificate of Vaccination or Prophylaxis. So yeah, I feel quite special with this, even though I am literally part of the very last category of person who has been allowed to receive a vaccine. Because yeah, I'm young and healthy and I sit at home all the time doing work on the internet. So I'm absolutely not the kind of priority person. But I'm glad that eventually they have got to the point where they do have enough doses to vaccinate also people like me who don't really need emergency vaccination. So yeah, it's coming together. I'm hoping we're not going to get crushed by the upcoming 4th wave, which we are a little bit expecting, but let's see what happens. So yep, thank you everyone for coming this week. Thank you for looking into the French grammar with me. If you have liked this video, please give it a like. I can give it a thumbs up. And if you have been watching the replay until now, well, thank you so much for watching it until the end. As always, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. And I will see you next week. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Au revoir.